In County, Florida, and all places in between north, south, east, and west. Sidelines on a Wednesday morning, July 9th, 2025. All of you people keeping track of the day and the year. So, hey, Rob Browne and Brendan Martin got a great show for you today. We got one of the original ones. I like that. Stay loyal. Please share. I love that. Hey, I love it. Loyalty is a two-way street, and we will do what we can always.
Stay loyal to the kingdom.
That's right, to share your brand as well. Coach Max Howell, they call him the OGs these days. That's what my kids' generation calls him, the original guys. He was sports talk radio like, you and your dad were. I've been listening to Max forever, recruiting, the whole big picture and the stories. You get it all with Max Howell. He'll be our first guest, followed by Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net up in Fayetteville, and Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal over in Knoxville. Hey, guys, and take a picture with your cellular phone of the QR code. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's how Coach Max Howell found us with Brendan on Facebook. And then Sunday, I'm like, wow, Max Howell watches this show. What an honor. Guys, a lot of big news today. Is it true $55 million for the payroll for Texas Tech football players? That's insane. We've been hearing it, though, Brendan. We've been hearing the rumblings about that. Coach Max Howell, what would Jack Crystal say right now? There's movement on the aisles here at Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. $55 million worth of maroon and white players. How you doing, man?
Doing great, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a while since I've done really live shows, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity to get a chance to jump back in the mix with you guys.
Max, you don't know Mr. Howell. First of all, I've always called you Mr. Howell. I've known you forever, and one of the just a great human being, great sportscaster all the way around. We streamed a show many years ago when it was not cool to be on the internet doing shows from one of over when you were on the air, and I think it was a Gator gathering or something on the beach. And we were one of the first times we ever done it. So you are really like, one of the forefathers of this entire stuff. Right. So therefore, don't forget, you were an innovator back in the day.
Well, let me tell you something, Brandon. Your dad was running a show, I guess back, I can't remember now, back in the maybe late 90s or maybe in the 2000s.
2000s, yeah.
And I just moved to Tupelo. And they'd had some coaching changes at Mississippi State. And I always called him and talked to him, and I was on with him a few times. And in fact, when I left radio in Atlanta, he was the first guy I called because I was really wanted to move. I ended up moving to Destin, but I really wanted to move on down to Florida and be on the air with him. And he asked me who the next football coach at that particular time was going to be at Mississippi at University of Florida. And I said, it's the guy at Mississippi State coming. And he said, you mean Dan Mullen? And I said, just check your book. He said, we've heard that, but we had no substantial evidence that was true. Next day, they announced it was Dan Mullen, the head football coach. And I never let Buddy forget that. I really.
Well, you know what? That's that. And sorry, Rob, I don't mean to cut you off because this is good history here because this is how this all was born.
Yes.
Was that coaching change? Dad and I sitting around in this house that I live in now, and we decided that no one was talking about. We had all this information and we're going to put it on the internet. And we just literally had like a 9-second delay between our voice and it looked terrible, but we had 800 live people watching the show at that day. And because we had all this information on Dan Mullen and on, what was it? Chip Kelly. It was the Chip Kelly, Dan Mullen game. And we went and covered it at the airport and all that. That was the birth of all of what we're doing right now was from that moment.
I was excited to be part of that. Buddy and I talked about that many times after that. But, when you've been around as long as I have and done as many things, I found myself in that position more times than probably I like to remember. But I was always fortunate to end up in a place where something you would start. After I came off the field at Ole Miss, I ended up going to Atlanta, and I was having a magazine published. I was recruiting coordinator at Ole Miss and the assistant to the athletic director at that particular time. I'd come off the field, but I had an interest in going. I was in the PhD program at Florida State in athletic administration. I thought that was going to be my in goal. But nobody was touching the junior college players. And back in one of my first coaching jobs back when I came out of school was at Troy. I went in there with Billy Atkins in 1965. In 3 years, we won a national championship. We got caught in that transition between NAIA and Division II. But we won it. We had 4 or 5 kids drafted in the NFL. We were way ahead of our times, but we we developed the portal guys before the portal was the portal, if that makes sense. We didn't sign. I was there 6 years on that staff. I think we signed 5 high school kids. Everybody we signed was transferring out of Auburn or Alabama, Georgia. It was like lining up NFL team with a high school team is what it amounted to. And the head coach Billy Atkins he had played for the 49ers. He brought the West Coast with us, and it was really fun. That launched my career, and certainly I had a good one. I got three kids in the Hall of Fame in the NFL that I had a chance to coach: Emmitt Smith, Deion Sanders, and Leroy Butler. So I really had a really great on the field experience, and I had a great radio challenge as well.
Coach, I remember back in the mid '90s, you were doing radio everywhere, and in Memphis, we got inspired by you. My buddy Joe Passantino lives in Birmingham now. We went down to Northwest down in Senatobia, and right. My friend Alan Callicott and the Callicotts have been mayors of Senatobia for a while, and we went out there to a game on a Thursday night to see 2 junior college kids. John Avery from Asheville, North Carolina, a running back, and another kid who had signed with Auburn but went to junior college, Andre Roan, out of Daytona Beach, Florida, Seabreeze High School, the nickname, the Sand Crabs. And we went down there and watched them, and you were like, wow. If is it, you know what? You know it when you see it. That you inspired so many people to look at the junior college kids. And, Bobby Joe Franklin, I remember being at a few parties in Memphis with him. And remember Cortez Kennedy played at Northwest. And Cortez showed up. This was a touchdown club party in Memphis. And, man, it was wild because, Mr. Young, Logan, was from Osceola, and he knew him. And Cortez passed away about 7 years ago. And you go to Wilson, Arkansas, with that nice little town there, and there's a big Cortez Kennedy Boulevard there. But you're the one that did wake people up to junior college. You were kind of like going from, 8-track to CD. It was that big a deal. And you were the pioneer that did it.
Well, there was no information out there about that at a particular time. And after I left Ole Miss, and of course, we recruited junior college players when I was on the staff there. But the fact is there were so many players. And of course, in those days, the 14 junior colleges in the state of Mississippi that all played football. And other than California, that I think's got 35 or 40, not all of them participate, but the great bulk of great athletes came out of Mississippi. Now, each school could have reassigned recruiters. For example, Miami sent a bunch of kids to the junior colleges, and it was all about academics. It wasn't athletic ability. These kids could play at any level, and a lot of there was some that went from junior college straight to the NFL. They just bypassed the last 2 years because they were that good of athletes. Yeah. But around the country knew a lot about it, and that was my little niche. I was going to try to put together recruiting information and kind of biographs on these kids, any publicity whatsoever. But that ended up paying off well because I was having the magazine. I wrote it in Oxford, and I was having it published in Atlanta. And I was driving from Oxford to Atlanta twice a week just to get the book out. And one day somebody came in and said they got a new radio station, sports station, getting ready to start up. And they're looking for people to come in and audition. I walked in and sit down and talked 15 or 20 minutes, and they gave me a contract right there. I was very fortunate to get in on the ground floor with a fan in Atlanta. That was a 50,000 clear channel that went from Chattanooga to the coast, and we ended up with a nationwide. That was one of the first stations of Cumulus, which ended up before I left, ended up with over 500 radio stations across the. But it was a really trip for me, and I get a chance to go back. Buck Ballew's still there, the great quarterback at Georgia, who handed the ball off to Herschel, and when it won the championship. But there were some really great people that came through, and again, it was one of those situations. I just found myself in the middle of it for whatever reason. divine intervention a lot, I think. I wasn't smart enough to figure that out ahead of time. But really ended up with a great career, both on the field at coaching and in the radio business as well.
Well, you did, and I love what Kerry Jones is saying. Lives up in Lebanon, Tennessee. He's been watching this show for a long time. I remember listening to the Southern Sports Today show. I told you, my 3 kids in 4 years in diapers. My escape was my 2-car garage, which was a weight room and a hunting lodge, and I had cold beer out there when I finished, and I'd listen to you every night. Okay, he said I remember listening to Southern Sports Today show years ago with Max Howell. Liked listening to him every afternoon, especially his daily "What's for dinner" segment. You remember that?
Let me tell you something, guys. We pull that off of Hee Haw, off
I
of.
know.
I'll tell you how good it was for me. I wrote 2 cookbooks out of that. I think I sold over 1,000 cookbooks across the South based on what's for supper. And that again, it's just one of those things. Guys, you look back over your career, as long as I've been around now, there's no way you can things that happen. I can just, it's, and I'm still amazed at how I got to certain places at certain times, and for whatever reason, it worked out most of the time. I think there was 1 or 2 that I wish I hadn't gone to, but I did, and that's called experience. Get older. But the fact is, I really ended up with a really great career, both on the field and in the broadcast business as well.
Well, Coach, you were at Escambia County High School over there in Pensacola, right near Catamount, which is where Rocky Colburn, who played at Alabama in 1979, always remember that Coach Bryant said they were looking at film back then on another player, and Rocky on Highway 27 right there at I-10 in Catamount, Florida, kept making all these plays. You coached at Escambia County, Emmitt Smith. Everybody at Auburn thought he was coming to Auburn. He ends up going to Florida. I remember standing next to him his freshman year at Florida. They were playing at Auburn. I was standing right next to him. I was working for ESPN. I would do that in college toward the end, my 5th and 6th years. But that must have been a lot of fun. And then you got to coach Deion Sanders and Leroy Butler.
I run that quickly, that scenario by you guys. I was a head coach at Gulf Breeze High School. Dwight Thomas was the head coach at Escambia. We played him during the. I'd coached against him his sophomore, junior years, and the offensive coordinator there that built a new high school, Washington High School in Pensacola, and Dwight's offensive coordinator took the head job, and Dwight called me and said, "How'd you like to come over here and run the offense for me and coach Emmitt?" I said, get the locker ready. I'm on the way next day. And I resigned at Gulf Breeze and took off. Guys, Emmitt was great. Don't get me wrong. He was the greatest high school player. We ended up that next year, we were number 1 in the country. We had, I can't tell you the number of college scouts that came by. And to answer your question about Emmitt itself, Rob, Emmitt wanted to go to Auburn. And his reason was he wanted to break Bo Jackson's rushing record. And and Larry Blakeney and Coach Dye stayed in my office, I guarantee you, half the week. I don't know when they ever coached during football season because they was in Pensacola most of the time. But not only did we have Emmitt guys on that high school team, we had 17 Division I players that came off that high school football team. Our offense, I had an offensive tackle that was 6'4", about 320, could outrun Emmitt. If we started on a quick pitch, many ball games, but never put the offensive line in a 3-point stance. The tackle just pulled and led. And I can't tell you that year how many touchdowns we scored on the first snap. Just pitch it to him and let him turn the corner, and the big tackle just led him right down the field. Not many defensive backs in high school could come up and take on a kid like that. But we did. University of Florida took 7 kids off that high school team. So I don't know, that may have still be a record. It was for a long time off one team. But that situation that I found myself in there, Mickey Andrews, the great defensive back at Alabama, ended up being defensive coordinator at Florida State, recruited for Florida State on the coast. And they had an opening that summer. I was already in graduate school there. And he asked me if I wanted to come on and work some with the football program. So I did the first year. I did the off-field stuff, a lot of recruiting for the recruiting staff itself. I was one of those guys early that didn't get on the field. Next year I was on the field and worked with the safeties. So I went from Emmett with all the kids that in the #1 high school team in the country to Coach Bowden. That was the first 2 years I was there. With the first 2 years, he went 14 straight years in the top 5. We opened up with Miami in '88. Went to Miami and got beat. We came back, and I'll never forget this. We flew back in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and all the kids were waking up and all. Coach Bowden got up on his team and said, "Fellas, I don't guess we got the message to you. Go back in and put those uniforms on." We went back in and scrimmaged from 2 in the morning till the sun came up. We went 11-0 after that. But out of that football team, we had 9 NFL draftees. Our whole secondary were first and second rounders. Of course, Leroy and Dion were the corners. They went in the first round. In the second round, I had the strong safety and the free safety, both. Dexter Dodge was a free, went to the 49ers, and our strong safety went to the Dallas Cowboys. So I mean, it was such a whirlwind in my career. It was like I didn't have time to go home and lay down and sleep. It was just one step after another, and I've been grateful for that ever since.
Well, Coach, I think about Tampa Catholic High School in Pensacola, I think, Washington, Escambia. Then there was Pine Forest. This is what we grew up with. This is why we love college football, or stories like this. And you asked me, am I going to fit in on your show? Uncle Jed said it best: 2 peas in a pod. You are knocking the ball out of the park. And I'm just listening to this and going, holy cow. A lot of people watch this show. We're blessed to have a great audience. But you and Buddy and Brendan, y'all all know this. Y'all are the ones that blazed the trail.
Coach, does this look familiar to you, what you're seeing on the screen?
Oh, yeah.
This is Emmett's highlight reel of what we could find on the internet of him in high school. That's how good the camera feed was back then. Somebody's probably up there with a cable loose. And look at him.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Look at that.
Remember a player to it like that.
I was trying to get a shot of the sidelines to see if we could catch a picture of you. But you can see it's not cut up very well, but that's pretty cool.
Coach, that is it, though. I mean, the recruiting, following the recruiting, and Bud Casey, I'm sure it was in your office once or twice. And I was thinking about Mickey Andrews from Daleville, Alabama. He came from Daleville, Alabama. He came to Florida State, I think in 84. No, was it 84? But when he got there, the defense, all of a sudden, it happened. It just, from 87 to 2000, 14 straight years, Florida State never lower than 5th in the country. And he coached there a long time. That must have been an incredible culture to be a part of.
I'm going to tell you guys how much confidence Coach Bowden had in him. I was on that staff 2 years. And of course, we had the regular routine. We'd play on Saturday. We'd get up Sunday morning, go in, have our staff meeting, break the tape down. We'd break for church service and lunch, and come back in the afternoon. We'd break up the defense and offense, and Mickey would get the game plan together, and all of us would make a contribution, and it would be some strong words from time to time. You can imagine guys when he goes as big as those guys had, but we all worked together in that thing. And never in the 2 years I was there, Coach Bowden ever came to a defensive meeting. Mickey would take that game plan in on Monday morning, lay it on Coach Bowden's desk, and he'd look up. I walked with him many times. He'd look up and say, "Can we win with this?" Mickey said, "That's what all the tapes say, Coach. I think we got them." He said, "Put it in," and that's all he'd say. And that was it. It was a unique trust between that coaching staff. I'm not saying they all agreed on everything, but that was when we came out of the dressing room or out of the office. We were as tight a team as it was playing on the field on Saturday. I can promise you that. And Coach Bowden knew that, and he knew the makeup of that staff. And it's no wonder he went to 14 years in the top 5. We were playing level, guys. Here's something a lot of people forget. We were playing at the level of recruiting at the time, at the level that Alabama has been for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, we didn't recruit, we selected. We had kids fly in from all over the country. And of course, if I'd get on the phone and tell them, we're in North Florida, the beach is not far away. I had a couple of kids from California come in, and they both ended up going to the NFL. They didn't come with us and went to Southern Cal. But the first thing they wanted to know was where the beach was. Well, we put them in a car, took them to the beach, about 50 miles away, but we took them. So it was a different world in those days. But being involved in an environment like Florida State was at that particular time, a lot of people had forgotten or were not Florida State fans at that particular time. Coach Bowden had the kids playing at the level Alabama is now, and I will never forget those days.
And I won't either. I mean, I trust me. I have been to Tallahassee to games. Gene Deckerhoff, that legendary golden voice, the Florida State Network. Chief Osceola comes out on Renegade with the spear at midfield, and this crowd at Doak S. Campbell Stadium rises to their feet. It's football time in Tallahassee. Then he'd go down on Sunday and call the games for Tampa Bay.
Very true. Very true.
And Coach, I know we're having a little bit of I think if there's a delay, if we wait about 3 seconds, I don't know what's causing it, but we'll work through it. Here's a question from Dr. David Arnoff. The best doctor in L.A., Lower Alabama, the panhandle of Florida. And I like what you said a minute ago. You were looking to move to Destin, but you said, I wanted to move on into Florida. There's the big debate. Is that Lower Alabama or is that Florida? But Dr. David Arnoff, the best, internal guy, doctor in the panhandle. How does a coach learn to have confidence in his staff? Time, results, what is it specifically? Question for Coach Max Howell, one of the Mount Rushmores of sports talk radio.
I can tell you, Rob, main thing, I go and model that situation with Coach Bowden. He was a character guy. I mean, anybody that didn't know him, what you saw was what you got. There wasn't any. I mean, he was a class act from day one. I got to say this. You all know that there's when you're recruiting at that level, you're gonna get a few bad apples along the way. But it never got to him. It was always a joke among the coaches, assistant coaches. If a kid had to get to see Coach Bowden, he better be bringing his suitcase because it was all over to get that level. He had a layer in between Chuckamata, and I could go through a litany of coaches that you had to go through for disciplinary problems and try to get them solved without taking it to Coach Bowden. Nobody could dismiss a kid but Coach Bowden. And he dismissed very few, I'll be honest with you, because they did a really good job in setting the table of having that kid come in and bring his parents in and measured his character as well as athletic ability and his academic standards as well. It was kind of a unique situation, particularly at that time, but it certainly paid off for him. And I'm not sure every head football coach in the Southeastern Conference had a program like that or could measure up themselves to a program like that. But Bobby Bowden did, and he was one of the greats.
No question. All right, we got a few more minutes before we have to bring in our next guest, but we got you for a few more minutes. I want to ask you, and we got to do this again soon, and we'll get the connection and all that worked out. Repetition is the mother of all skill. We all know that. That's why we have coaching. But this is fantastic stuff. Looking at the landscape right now in the SEC, you look at the coming and going, the portal. I mean, guys have always transferred. You talked about building that Troy program with guys that transferred from Auburn and Alabama with Coach Billy Atkins. And look at it now. If you're a coach, how do you trust someone when they're hanging it over your head that I can get a better deal somewhere else and I'm leaving? True NIL to me is you stick it out at that school, then you become part of that network. These kids today, they're getting a quick check for 6 months or a semester. But if it doesn't work out where they leave, they can never go home, can they?
No, you're absolutely right, Rob. And I'll tell you the way that coaches can, I think what I call short circuit the system. Don't just take the kid where he is today and look at it. Go back and check his high school record out. Go back and find out what kind of family he comes from. There's many things that you've got time to do when you're talking, particularly now when you're having to pay these kids like they are. But I mean, because of the change in that, I don't think there's any doubt. We know why Nick Saban retired. It was all about his system, and he built great teams with a system that he perfected. And when it got to them, the visit on the campus, and all they wanted to know was how much playing time they were going to get and how much money they were going to get, that didn't fit his program. So what did he do? I mean, for him, probably the smartest thing he ever did in his coaching career was to step back aside, because I don't know that his records will ever be leaving because of some of the things you just talked about. But I think in measuring that kid's integrity, measured his status on how he fits in your program, I don't think you can take him just off a tape and look at his athletic ability. I think you got to go back and check his academics. I think you got to go back and check how he played in high school, what his friends were like, what kind of family life did he have. I think all that plays a major role in the credibility of signing a kid today.
I agree, Coach. And I mean, I've always said if I'm going to hire somebody, hey, you want this job? How bad do you want it? I want you to be able to run 5 miles within 30 days. Now, maybe they're a runner. They can. But you got to find out about trust. And it's so, isn't it true? Hard work reveals character. It doesn't really build it. It builds muscle. But you look at the people, and I'll just say this. I get really mad when people say, I'm old. Nobody cares what I say. The hell they don't. We're lucky we got, I'm Dad's watching right now. He's 96. I mean, he works out every day. You get one trip to the plate, you better make it count. We're losing a lot if we're not listening to the people. We have got a lot of crazy stuff happening. But Coach, leave us with just a little bit of wisdom, and then we're going to bring you back on here in the next few weeks if you'll come join us. But what would you be telling a team if you had the opportunity to go into an SEC locker room before the first game of this season, considering all that's happening around you?
Guys, I tell you, I've listened to your show. I listened to 3 of your shows last night. The position with all your guests and all about the players. But guys, I think you're missing something by not taking a look at that coaching staff. And your occasion you'll bring it up. And I've heard the remarks about Billy Napier in his passing game, and I've heard remarks about Hugh Freeze, and he's basically going to throw it. He's got 3 downs inside the 5. He might throw it 3 downs. I'm telling you, there are certain tendencies that coaches are going to live up to, and I think in those teams that you have projected out, the great players are going to be on most every team. But guys, you need to take a close look at the history of those coaches that's coaching those guys, because I was a perfect example. I found myself learning everywhere I went. And I took the next step. I learned from one of the best, and been starting off with Billy Atkins, having just come out of the NFL, and we installed an NFL program in a team that was not much, just a step higher than most high school teams. But that transition of what those coaches know and how they can communicate with their staff plays as much of an important role as those 5-star that they got on the line of scrimmage or behind the center. And I think that's probably the only thing that I'd say. When you guys talk, you got such a varied audience out there. Really need to make a comment or two along the way about about the coaches that's coaching them, because there's going to be some games won and some lost on the sideline this year that you'll scratch your head about how in the heck did that happen. A great one last year was Vanderbilt in Alabama. How in the world? And I know. And I've had this discussion many times about Coach DeBoer. All they had to do was pull the New Mexico State game tape and look at the same thing they did. That's what Vanderbilt did. They brought the quarterback and the coach from there. They ought to know that that's what they were going to run. But evidently they didn't do that. If you watch that ball game, so little things like that from coaching staffs along the way will give you guys heads up when it comes to talking about and projecting out who you think's going to win or lose.
Coach, God, thank you so much. We got to do this again. I'm going to go back and watch this show. I always watch them and take notes. But Max Howell, how do people follow you, keep up with you if you're posting anything on social media?
Yeah, I do a little bit on Facebook. I got a slot on Facebook, just Max Howell. In game day, I use a email address of gameday.com. whatever anybody wants to get a hold of me, just shoot me something there. Go to Facebook, you'll find me somewhere along the way. I've changed in my old age. I'll leave you with this. I've taken everything I learned and tell you how I jumped to another complete field. I'm the CEO of a energy company out of Colorado, and they didn't hire me for anything. My educational background, it was all in education and all, but they hired me mainly because of my contacts that I've made during the radio days and the football. There's not a client that we don't talk to and cover with, that all I got to do is mention Deion Sanders or Emmitt Smith or those guys. That opens up the conversation. And I'm the people person for that company. We've done very well. We got offices in the Philippines and Dominican Republic and getting ready to open one in Grenada. It's in a whole new field for me. But I'm not interested in our product line. I'm interested in contacting the people in our business to the potential clients out there, and they pay me for that. So.
Well, Coach, what an honor. This is awesome. I'll call you after the show. Thank you so much. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you, guys.
You bet. That was awesome. Coach Max Howell, one of the original guys, the OGs, whatever. But that's what our kids call them, Dudley. We got kids about the same age. I mean, you're like the OGs, but I grew up listening to him on radio, and the writers, the people that can tell the stories like him who've been doing it a while. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net is on with us now, live from Heber Springs in the background there. A beautiful background it is. Hey, man, we're got media days kicking off Monday, Dudley. I'm going, looking forward to it. Every coach, you could take the same 10 sound bites from 30 years ago, put them in a time capsule, and pull them out. We're excited. It's been a great summer. Kids have worked really hard. We're excited about the freshman class coming in. We're excited about being excited. Dudley, how are you?
I'm good. Don't forget about the culture, and kids want to get better every day.
That is true. Dudley, do you want to get better every day?
Absolutely. Don't want to get worse. That's for sure. I mean, I'll be okay staying even now, but do not want to get worse.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I am a big believer in continuity, and and I know everybody out there watching knows you want to be good at something. Repetition is the mother of all skill. You just got to do it. I like what Roman Harper said a couple of weeks ago on the show. Sean Payton challenged the team when he was playing for the New Orleans Saints. He said, if you're going to do something you've never done before, you've got to do something you've never done before. Not even Jack Handy could have a thought that deep, could he?
You better have a safe word.
Yeah, possum grape.
Possum grape.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mexico.
I think, it is important. No matter what business you're in, what sport you're coaching, playing, whatever, it's important for that consistency. But yeah, I agree that if you don't move ahead each day, then you're falling behind because somebody's moving ahead. And it's one of these things that, especially today, when the college football and really college sports landscape is almost as much business as it is on the field stuff. I mean, that's where you're winning games now, is off the field with the NIL and collectives and all this such thing. And, I've been very vocal about how Lake Arkansas didn't jump on board quick enough and started out behind and you're trying to continually trying to catch up. You might win your 9 games. You might win your 8 games every 1 year. But if you want to be consistent at the top, or at least in the middle, which is, a fantastic, you're still a fantastic football team. If you're in the middle of the SEC, you have to play the game now. And the people that we see doing that, and Texas Tech is one of them for sure. They're making headways now, and it's a business now. It's not just a sport.
Dudley, have you been to Lubbock before?
Oh yeah. Back when Arkansas was in the Southwest Conference, it was it was a trip all the time for basketball, football, a little baseball. But yeah, it's a lovely city.
Well, the thing from Altus, Oklahoma, a little bit of trivia here. From Altus, Oklahoma to Lubbock, Texas, there's more cotton grown in that stretch than anywhere else in the world, with the exception of as a guy in my world history class at Auburn said one time, a big old fellow wearing overalls, the Yangtze River Valley in China. Everybody looked at him, and he was about 8 feet tall, and was like, "Hey, that's fine, Yangtze." But Lubbock, that guy Cody Cameron, you think it's true that he's spending $55 million? Because he's apparently a billionaire. 4-year letter.
Apparently, there's a thunderstorm about to crash through my window. So if anyone hears that, it's a Florida thunderstorm rolling in, and it is loud.
Hey, you know what? You should have been Monday morning. The crop dusters were coming 50 feet over the house. These guys over here, I don't think they can get life insurance. It's hard to write them up, but hopefully.
Yes, I do believe that's true. And here's the reason. Number one, he really loves his wife. She's a former Texas Tech softball player. He wants her to be happy. He has plenty of money, and they're just pouring in there. I mean, from Tennessee, all over the place. These recruits are just hopping in there. So, yes, I believe that's real money because Texas Tech did not have a burgeoning softball program that attracted big-time stars before he jumped in the mix.
Yeah. Well, Vince Ferrara is going to be on here with us in a second from the Sports Animal up in Knoxville. Vince, good morning. Welcome aboard. Talking a little bit about Texas Tech. By the way, Vince, you see the sign back there over my left shoulder, Vanelli's Deli right there.
Yeah.
Was out there to see Charles Monday to pick up a Mio More sandwich with the mortadella, the salami, the provolone cheese on the fresh baked bread. And Charles was making some cheese. He said, look, hand making it in a skillet. He said, Americans call it ricotta cheese. He goes, it's ricola. And the only way you can get it is through me. And I sent you that video of him back there. But, man, you come to Memphis, same thing here, Dudley. Go to Vanelli's Deli. I got the Italian meatball sandwich. It's a 107-year-old recipe. The family sausage, pork, and beef. They hand roll them for every sandwich. I get into food. I know I'm like a competitive eater or something, but I'm excited because talking all this football means getting together. And getting together, as Elvis would say, means eating. Hand me the salt shakers. Take the top off of it. How fired up are y'all for college football season?
Well, I'm fired up that you just tortured me since I haven't had breakfast and been up since like 4:30 this morning. So thanks to that. No, you're good.
You chose your life, man. You chose your life.
This is it for sure. But no, I'm incredibly fired up. Like we're talking about, we went through on the show this morning, Athlon. They rank every position 1 through 16 in their preseason magazine. It's that time of year where if you're on a flight, if you're, have any sort of windows of opportunity to read with downtime, you take your preseason magazines with you and you go through them and sift through them as much as you can. I always feel like, man, I wish I would have been able to read more of them, but you do what you can in your prep leading up to media days, especially. And, just really interesting to see the differing opinions of the preseason publications, which you have to take them with a grain of salt because the rosters change so much. There's a lot of unknown for all of these teams that are having to go both ways with the portal. You just don't know how it's all going to fit. It's a crapshoot. But it's still fun to dive into. And then obviously it took it to another level yesterday when they officially announced for SEC football media days, and you get to talk about the specific players that are there and those that are not there.
They put out the list, and I was looking at it, and I did not open up the email with who's coming. Let's start with Dudley. Who's coming from Arkansas? And then, Vince, I want to go back to you because if I can help y'all getting sound bites, interviews, anything when I'm down there, that's what I'm there for because y'all are here for us and we're here for y'all because this is a damn team. Teamwork works.
Not a surprise. Taylon Green, the quarterback from Arkansas, will be there. Xavier Sorey, obviously one of their better defensive players, and Cam Ball, defensive lineman. Those three are those three are all loquacious, will all represent the university well. The worst thing you could ever do to a media days is send somebody who doesn't want to talk. And, but these three guys love to do it. And so looking forward to that. And I got to be honest with you. Yes, I'm looking forward to football, but I still have a little bit of vacation left in here. I will start getting ready when my beautiful wife, Petra, and I go and see Kansas and 38 Special in late July up here at the AMP, just like we probably did 30 years ago.
Well, you know what? I love what you said, Kansas and 38 Special.
Hold on.
Johnny Van Zant, his brother was in another band that I bet Vince knows who that band was.
No, actually I don't.
Ronald Van Zant?
No.
Ronnie Van Zant, lead singer Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, not a big rock guy, believe it or not. I mean, I know Leonard Skinner, I know their music, but yeah, I'm not a big rock guy. I know that will bother some people, but that's
good to know that you know Leonard Skinner. Though we'd have to kick you off the show.
Yeah.
You couldn't talk about Southern football.
Oh my God!
Is it the Washington Collins band, or what was the answer?
That's right, Rosing. No, it was Leonard Skinner. Look at these graphics that Brendan just put up here, and I love it. For Michael Jordan, listening down on 30A on Blue Mountain, MJ. Today's word is loquacious. Loquacious. I'd like some loquacious on my salad. I love that word. It means talkative and egregious. And hey, Vince, one thing we always see at media days is when all the reporters crowd around and start asking questions. So who's coming from Knoxville, and have you had a chance to talk to these guys already?
Yeah, look at the great graphics that Brendan's got up on both teams, and no surprise really that two of them were locks. Miles Kitselman, tight end for Tennessee, is one of the top returning tight ends in the SEC. He is one of only two returning starters for Tennessee, the other being Lance Hurd, the left tackle. So they're not bringing Lance Hurd. He had an inconsistent year last year, and I didn't really talk to him much in the media last year anyway. So Kitselman is one of the voices and leaders of this team. So he was one of those guys that they put out in the press conference after the spring game with all the Nico drama. So that, to me, locked him in for media days. Then on the defensive side, the other guy that was there in that press conference was linebacker Arion Carter in his third season. Really talented guy, maybe top 20-ish type of linebacker around the country, and has the potential that D-line continues to be good in front of him to take that next step. He's a leader on this team, so he was a natural for sure, really well spoken. And then the third one, we knew it was going to be a defensive lineman, and we thought maybe Jackson Moy, who I think is poised to start, a former Stanford Cardinal. He's going to start a D-tackle alongside Bryson Eason, but they went with Bryson Eason. He's a great story. He started out, he's from Memphis, down the road from you guys, not too far away. He started out as an outside linebacker, then bulked up a little bit, went to inside linebacker, then moved down to defensive end, kept putting on weight, and now he's a defensive tackle. And he's gotten better every year as a leader, very well spoken, really good personality, and he's an in-state kid. And that D-line is the strength of this team. So you want to have a representative there. They don't have their best player there, and that's Jermon McCoy, but he's injured and rehabbing from a torn ACL, which may take him into the season before we see him. That's the reason why he's not there and having to field all those injury and rehab questions. Otherwise, he would absolutely be the third player there and be there. So I think that's a legitimate reason. Some just they want to avoid questions, or maybe they're not comfortable. James Pierce Jr., was in that category. Some, they just don't want to put certain guys in certain positions, even if they're their best player. But that's not the case for Tennessee. It's certainly, the injury question for him and when he'll be ready to go.
And I got some players here at Arkansas that are great kids and all that, but they would not be the best ones at the event. It's just a matter of sometimes sending the best, and if you want me to use loquacious again, loquacious players that you can get the best quotes of. Because let's be honest, we're going down there, we're going to listen to the coaches, we're going to listen to the players, and we'll write what they say. But we really would like for it to be interesting.
Yeah.
No, real quick, I was just going to say the approach for some, though, is to get out of there unscathed. You'd like for them to be able to help their brands and show some personality. But I think coaches want to get through, all right, who's not going to say anything stupid that is going to get headlines? How can we get out of there unscathed? I don't think that everybody is worried about, showing personality or entertainment or things like that. I wish they would put more value in, hey, this guy can be a huge hit there with their personality. I think they want to do, all right, who's earned it, who's smart and not going to get offline or get off message, that kind of thing. So I know past coaches at Tennessee that were not as successful. They would put guys that would give you really short answers and, acted like they didn't want to do interviews and be there and put them in that situation because they didn't want to send their more interesting players and they didn't want to generate any headlines. They just want to get in and out of there and stay under the radar. That's unfortunate, but I think some have in the past taken that approach.
Speaking of unfortunate, I saw a list earlier this week, and since me and Vince are on here, it makes sense. The worst coaching hires the last 25 years.
Yeah,
Arkansas had Chad Morris, of course, at number 4, and Jeremy Pruitt, number 7 there. And I think those were both worthy top 10 selections.
Well, I'm just shocked Brian Harsin wasn't number 1.
But he was on the list.
Yeah, but he didn't get enough credit for damaging it and just death penalty like what he did to Auburn football. I tell you, Franz Beard wrote an article on GatorbaitMedia.com about no one understands how bad it was when Freeze got there. But as far as guys being afraid to be bold and brash at media with their brand, 15 sentences that live in my head rent-free. Audrey, my wife, gave this to me a few months ago. One of them is, ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what they're built for. I say, go down there. When Deion was in college, remember he had the limos dropping him off at games and stuff, and everybody just was outraged, but he's still living off of that. Loquacious is not the same thing as being talkative. Well, wait a minute. I've been called out, and I did take word wealth in 10th grade, but now technically loquacious is Vince, Dudley, help me, please.
No, I was just going to build off for what you said about Deion. Deion's taking that approach. He's taken both of his quarterbacks in a quarterback competition, a true freshman 5-star in Caden Salter, the transfer, a one-time Tennessee Volunteer, by the way, and he's taken a kicker. 5 guys at media days for Colorado, so they're more wide open in how they do it in the Big 12. So, but yeah, he's taken a much different approach. Who takes both quarterbacks in a quarterback competition? You just don't see that.
That is interesting. And I remember when Gus took Jeremy Johnson before he started one game October 12th of 2013 against Western Carolina, and Auburn won that game like 52-13. But that was before 2015 when he started against LSU and threw a backwards pass at midfield, which I've still never seen anyone else do again. Bless his heart. Dudley? Dudley, you're muted, I think.
So I'm just learning stuff from George over here, reading as well as talking, and we're trying to do our best to put out a plethora of words to maybe in the vernacular that you're not used to.
Whoa!
Before. I am not the smartest man in the room. Even if
you're one of them, though.
Even if there's only 2 of us, but I can drop some words and fake it for a while.
All right, I'm going to tell you right now. Being that we're in the South, little redneck vocabulary. Now, how about this? But mayonnaise. Mayonnaise, a lot of people watching this show, and if we're wrong, they're going to let us know. Vince, what I love about media days is I come away every time I go to media days feeling really good about what's going on because these kids seem like maybe they're the best representatives you've got, but that's what you ought to do. Put your best foot forward. What are you looking forward to learn about Tennessee that we don't know? What are some stories that you're covering? I'm going to do the same thing with Dudley. Just go straight to him because they got a lot of people watching, and they say this is about the only information we get. I know in Memphis, Tennessee gets hardly any coverage, which is unfortunate. And they want to hear from the man from Tampa.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The good thing about for us with Tennessee is this will be the first time in the offseason to talk to these guys. It won't be the last because just before fall practice starts, we will get a chance. We'll hear from Josh Heupel. We'll probably hear from the coordinators very early. They'll do a media day, a local media day where they'll give us, 20 different players. Then during camp, a couple of times a week, they'll rotate assistant coaches. Heupel will talk once a week. They'll give us 2 to 4 players a day. So there is plenty of opportunities to talk to these guys. So that is a positive to where we're like this or nothing. I enjoy talking to those guys because it's the first crack at it in terms of the offseason, the chemistry with new guys. You can always get good intel on what they think about guys that have come into the program, who's doing what. Yeah. And then the biggest thing that is going to be a topic for Josh Heupel and all of the players, whether they're on offense or not, is the quarterback situation at Tennessee. That's been the national storyline. What's Joey Aguilar like? I think I talked to you guys maybe about it last week where he's going to children's hospitals. He's volunteering. He went to autograph signings and he's holding babies and high-fiving kids and just doing everything he can. So I think asking about him specifically, the quarterback position, Nico's exit, that will be the biggest storyline that Tennessee will carry when we talk to them, but then also when they're in the open rooms for everybody else to ask about him. And then one last thing is I enjoy, and we're only going to be there on Tuesday for Tennessee's day, so we won't have the opportunity to do it. I love talking to the rest of the league about Tennessee and get their perspective on them. You never know. Dudley, you know this. I think we mentioned it last year. Taylon Green and Nico Iamaleava had a relationship and a friendship and worked out in the offseason going into last year. So you find out about those connections within the league, plus with the portal guys moving team to team. So there's plenty you can learn beyond just the team that you're covering.
Yeah, and I agree totally. And I think that, there's a lot of good quotes that can come out of there asking the other teams, the other players about Arkansas, because you get a lot of the same stuff from the same guys that you've seen all along. I will say that I want to know a little bit about the players and all that, and Coach Pittman will talk about that. But I think a couple of the questions that's going to be asked even more to him will regard the new general manager. That's the new thing in at least the last couple of years, the new thing in college football is having general managers who are supposed to help take some of the business stuff off of head coaches and the coaching staff. Remy Cofield, shout out to him, former Boston Celtic employee during the NBA championship, number 18. So he already had a step up with me. But we finally got to talk to him recently. He shared a lot of information, but there's so much more we'd like to know, so much more how this dynamic's going to work. As I think I said earlier, it's about winning off the field now. How is this stuff working out? I've made it clear already earlier today that I think Arkansas is still coming from behind with the NIL, the collectives, and all that. I think they've had good people. I've met with some of them. Feel good about what they're trying to do, but it's like running uphill, trying to catch up. And it's been a long time since I ran uphill, but that's a tough thing. And I really do believe that they're going to have to do something dynamic, much like Johnny Tyson did with basketball, which, by the way, basketball, we get open practice later today. So Kevin McPherson, our basketball guy, will be there to have a lot of reports from that on hogville.net. But you really are going to have to do something like you've done in baseball, like you've done in basketball, to get football rolling. And 6-7 wins is not rolling.
Yeah. Look, we got just a few minutes left. I'll say both of y'all. Vince, I love that. I want to go there and find out what other people are saying about Tennessee. And Dudley, both of y'all. That word up there, George, has supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Remember that from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? I think that's what that was with Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews. Oh, man, that movie's been around a long time. Both of y'all. Sports Animal in Knoxville, Vince, you do a great show every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Also a Sunday morning great sports show up there, Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. I'll be in Atlanta all week long, getting there Sunday afternoon. Anything I can do to help y'all know my number. I will do it. I'll get you sound bites, whatever I can. If you're not going to be there, I know I'll see you Tuesday, Vince, but both of y'all, thank you more than you know for coming on here. Next week, we kind of switch into another gear, but it's still summertime because as long as you can go outside and sweat, like that, it's still summertime. So football.
Hey, it's a heck of a week in Atlanta next week. Not only do you have the SEC Media Days, you have the Major League Baseball Draft, the Futures Game, the All-Star Game, and Bill Goldberg and WWE are bringing wrestling.
That's right. 2 nights
on Saturday night.
And Beyonce has 2 shows there as well. Mercedes, Sunday.
Slay Queen, Slay.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It is going to be crazy, man. All right. Look, awesome stuff. Thank you both again, more than you know. Look forward to doing it next week. I'll talk to you before then as well from Atlanta. All right.
See you guys. Thank you.
You bet. Let me say something real quick. Rumble Boxing at McLean and Union in Midtown Memphis and Camp Lee. They got a great slogan. As you get older, you need to work out and exercise more. Fight back. Rumble Boxing. Look on their Twitter page. A lot of stuff's going to be coming out. We're going to be attaching it, but I'm going to tell you what, hashtag SECMD25. And what they're doing at Rumble Boxing, they're open every day of the week. They've got weights. They've got the classes. They've got 48 punching bags, got everything you need to get in the best shape of your life. Hey, as you get older, you better fight back. Rumble Boxing. Also, hey, the great folks at Landers Ford, if you're a lady, they've got some good-looking Broncos out there. Robin Egg Blue with the retro red stripes in the front. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Germantown and Collierville meet. They're open 7 a.m., 7 p.m. every day of the week except Sunday. The 25 Expeditions are in. All the trucks, the F-150s, the F-250s, and again, the Sasquatch, the Laredo, those Bronco packages, the Ford Promise. They will work with you every possible angle to get you driving off in a new car, truck, or SUV. And the great folks at Hewlett and Dunn right down the street on the square, historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Why Hewlett and Dunn? Because they've got this good-looking trucker's hat right here, the patch. I love these hats. And also that big Cabrero in the back. They've got Filson, Barber, Double Dog Jeans, Old South, Duck Heads, like you never see anything like it, and over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's, and even a lot of kids' boots. Great looking clothes for the men, the women, and the children. Talk to Charles Hall, the owner, his wife Laura, 2 of the best people you'll ever meet. J.M. Huffman, Raven, Lydia, Squidward, all of them out there. You'll run into somebody I promise you, at Hewlett and Dunn. And hunting and fishing cranks up Labor Day weekend. You better be getting ready. Your deer stands, you better be getting ready. Winter timber coming to a town near you in the SEC footprint. Expected opening first week of August. Auburn, Alabama, University Drive, 13,000 square foot store. And the great folks at Winter Timber, everything you need, outdoor life, all the Yeti coolers, duck camp. They've got Dixie decoys, all the Sitka gear. And I'm going to tell you what, it also segues to another one of our friends, Chris Aiken, Web-Footed Kennels. It's how we're going to media days. And bless people in the world. Gaddis Home Innovation. You want to build a man cave? Call Gaddis Home Innovation.